Africa Investor Today is proudly brought to you in association with Petro SA and Afrexim Bank.
Good day and welcome to Africa Investor Today as we bring you news from the African continent. I'm Zylan. We start today's bulletin with politics and economy. Zimbabwean Prime Minister Morgan Tsvangirai said on Sunday he would stay in the government and challenge President Robert Mugabe's ZANU-PF to implement last year's political deal in full. Tsvangirai said last week his movement for democratic change was suspended last month's cabinet boycott. This boycott was a wake-up call for the Mugabe not to regard Tsvangirai's party as a junior partner in the fragile 9-month-old coalition. A meeting of the Southern African Development Community in Mozambique last week gave Mugabe and Tsvangirai 15 days to resolve the issues threatening to derail the unity government, after which South Africa, which has been facilitating a rapprochement, would step in. The African Union has announced a wide range of sanctions, including travel bans and assets freezing against Guinea's military rulers. The Pan-African body over the weekend also said it would not readmit Madagascar until a newly agreed power-sharing government was in place and fresh elections were in the pipeline. The AU Peace and Security Commissioner said the travel bans and assets freezing decision followed the refusal of the military rulers in Guinea to restore constitutional order to the West African country. A partial election for Mauritania's Senate began on Sunday with the participation of an opposition party. The majority of current senators support the government of Mohamed Ould Abdul Aziz, who seized power in a military coup in August 2008 and won a presidential election in July 2009. Opposition parties said they would take part in the election but will refuse to cooperate with the government until they investigate allegations of fraud during the presidential polls. Sunday's vote will elect 18 senators from a total of 56, and a runoff vote will be held in a week's time if needed. We'll take a short break. We'll be back with more news after this.
Redefining energy means redefining life. At the Petroleum, Oil and Gas Corporation of South Africa, our commitment to greater innovation and greener fuels has made us pioneers in the field of gas-to-liquids technology. It has also earned us worldwide recognition for producing the cleanest fuels through environmentally friendly processes. That's how we've become the international leader in diesel technology. Through pure innovation, pure energy, pure brilliance.
On to banking and finance news now. Investors in National Bank of Kenya's shares might receive a dividend as early as next year after a 12-year wait as the bank inches closer to clearing its pile of losses. Latest data show that the state-controlled bank's accumulated losses stood at 401 million shillings in September 2009, down from 1.7 billion shillings in September 2008 and 4.2 billion shillings in 2007. The bank has been on a steady recovery path that saw it return to profitability 6 years ago, culminating in a net profit of 972 million shillings in the first 9 months of this year, compared with 893 million shillings in a similar period a year earlier. The managing director of Attijari Wafi Bank, Mohammed Al-Katani, on Friday called for a true South-South cooperation in the banking sector so that Africa can face the various breakdowns expected after the global economic downturn. The MD said that Africa can only establish a financial position if it can rely on itself and create social dynamics by strengthening cooperation within its various states. Economists are anticipating it'll be business as usual when Jill Marcus takes the hot seat of South Africa's Reserve Bank from Monday. Marcus takes over as governor from Tito Mboweni. She has already spent a month at the bank in an advisory role. Marcus's appointment has prompted media speculation about how she will deal with the Labour demands to loosen monetary policy further, as well as central bank's independence and the question of the country's general monetary policy regime. With that, we'll take a short break and we'll be back after this. Stay with us.
Afrexim Bank is Africa's leading trade finance bank, an organization dedicated to promoting African trade through credit, risk-bearing and advisory services. We pride ourselves on having local presence throughout the continent and are committed to extending our award-winning trade and project finance programs to unlock private sector development continent-wide. We invite you to become a part of our vision for a strong Africa in a changing world. If you trade within Africa, contact us to support you.
On to companies and markets now. South Africa's biggest wireless phone operator Vodacom reported lower first half profits mainly due to 3.2 billion rand impairment charge after acquiring a satellite company. Vodacom says half-year earnings were almost wiped out after it wrote down the value of its gateway communications. Net income fell to 61 million rand in the 6 months ended September the 30th from 3.7 billion rand last year. The company, which is controlled by Vodafone Group, said sales rose 9.9% to 28.7 billion rand. The Tanzanian competition authorities are investigating allegations of anti-competition behavior against SAB Miller's Tanzania Breweries Limited. The allegations have been made by Serengeti Breweries Limited, which is the Global Beer Group's only competitor in Tanzania. On Friday, Godfrey Mkocha, the Director General of Tanzania's Fair Competition Commission, said claims that TBL had resorted to anti-competitive tactics were under investigation by his office. We'll be back with infrastructure news. Stay with us.
Africa Investor, the leading African investment magazine, is essential reading for investors in Africa, filled with the very latest in Pan-African investment and finance news. In addition, log on to africa-investor.com to find out more about our exciting capital market, infrastructure and tourism events, and our long-standing investable Africa Investor 100 Index series, which tracks over $600 billion of African equities. Doing business in Africa, you can't afford to be without Africa Investor.
Finally, on to infrastructure news now. China has loaned Ethiopia $349 million for construction of a 79-kilometer expressway between the capital Addis Ababa and Adama. China Road and Bridge Corporation will start building the road next year. In addition to roads, Chinese companies have signed deals to build dams, power lines, and upgrade Ethiopia's telecommunications network in recent years. Africa is moving towards a harmonized maritime transport charter that will, apart from building trade capacity, see a united approach to industry threats such as piracy. This follows the adoption of the African Maritime Transport Charter at the Second African Union Conference of Ministers responsible for maritime transport under the theme creation of a safe, secure and clean maritime transport industry held in Durban, South Africa. The aim of the conference was to consider and adopt the draft African Maritime Transport Charter and consider the status of the implementation of the Plan of Action on Maritime Transport. And with that news, we wrap up today's bulletin. Do log on to www.africa-investor.com for more news. Goodbye for now.
Africa Investor Today is proudly brought to you in association with Petro SA and Afrexim Bank.